So, Will, you can confirm when we go live, okay?
Yes. So someone sent me a message asking where we were.
We're a little bit late. Oh my gosh, people are waiting. Yeah,
Glad they're excited.
they're excited. Yeah. There you go. Are we live?
Yes, there we are.
Perfect. Okay, now let's go. Good morning, everyone. Sorry about the delay. We Zoom, as you probably already know, we had a little bit of delay with Zoom had an overload this morning, but we're here. We have our guests, as we announced in our Facebook event. We're here with Lynn Summer and Leslie Huff from the Samaritan Center. They will be introducing themselves a little bit soon. We have Will Massey, our co-host, youth director from Highland. So,
Hello.
and of course, we invite you to join us with your comments, your questions. And the topic for today is mental health for children and teens as we get ready for our new school year. And as we speak, a lot of teachers are starting their classes. Manhattan Township starts school tomorrow, so I'm sure they're setting up everything with the classrooms, computers, cameras, and everything else. So it's a new way to start school. So we're with you parents. I'm a parent myself. I have a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, an 8th grader and a 7th grader. So I want to learn about this topic myself too. So let's jump into the topic, mental health for children and teens. So first of all, Lynn and Leslie, welcome. And please, I don't know, whoever wants to start, tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about Teen Hope and the Samaritan Center as we start. Welcome.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having us. I'm Lynn Summer, and for a number of years, I worked as a school counselor in a local public school district. Then I transitioned to Samaritan. I work as a therapist, primarily with teens and kids. And then I also work as the screening specialist for the Teen Hope program. Just to tell you a little bit about the Teen Hope program, it is in 14 school districts in Lancaster and Lebanon County. It started in 2013-2014 school year. A school district will decide of a grade level that they would like to have screened for mental health, anxiety, depression, and suicide risk. And they will have a team come in. For example, it could be 9th grade or it could be 7th grade. And depending on the size of the class, we may screen for 1 to 4 days. And it's not so much about making a diagnosis as it is about educating the students and giving resources to the parents. So Highland has been a great supporter of the program, and it is a rich and wonderful resource to our community.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lynn. And Leslie, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. No, I'm very happy to be here as well. And also, I think this topic speaks to my heart as we're navigating first grade with our daughter. So my name is Dr. Leslie Huff. I'm a licensed psychologist, but I also am a certified teacher in mindful self-compassion. Many of you may be familiar with mindfulness, which is about trying to be present with whatever's happening, being in the present moment. The compassion component really is about how do we relate to whatever it is that we're experiencing in the present moment, as well as also how do we take care of ourselves so that we can respond to what's happening in the present moment rather than kind of getting caught in reactivity that really can just sort of spiral us into not so great places. I also run the Change Through Compassion program at Samaritan Counseling Center, in addition to providing therapy.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Leslie. And of course, we have Will Massey with us. Well, just a brief greeting so we can jump into the questions.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I'm excited to get to know some people from Samaritan. I've heard very good things about their programs and how they support young people.
And thank you, Will. And welcome to everyone who is joining. I think we have some people who already are watching us. Some people were asking us, where are you guys? Where are you? So I hope they found us. All right. So the first question we want to talk about here is any of you, you can either Len or Leslie, as we prepare for a new school year, what are some practices the parents need to keep in mind for an emotionally healthy journey for themselves and for the children?
So I'll start. A good suggestion that I heard, 2 words are grace and space. So first of all, parents, give ourselves grace and our children grace. And we understand that grace is undeserved kindness. So when our moody teenager, maybe it doesn't feel like they deserve that grace, they need it more than ever. And we also need to offer space to ourselves as parents, but also to our children. They have historically been at school for 8 to 10 hours a day and had activities after school, and they were not being micromanaged by us during that time. And while they've been learning under our roof at home, it's so easy to micromanage. And so they also need space. And I would stretch that to also add that parents, if we could give grace to other parents who are making different decisions for school than our family is making, that's really important as well, because we're all doing the best that we can in a very difficult time. And this idea of grace and space, I heard from Brenda Yoder, who is an author of a book titled Fledge Launching Kids Without Losing Your Mind, and will be on a resource list that you'll see later. A second thing I think to keep in mind for this healthy journey is to recognize the grief and loss that our children are experiencing and validate it and honor it, no matter how small it might seem. It might be that they're really sad they won't have the same lunch table this year with their same friends that they can talk to. Or it could be their sport team or their drama club. Ask them what they need from this loss and then be creative with that. Another thing that families can offer at this time is routine. Routine is really helpful to children. And it could be as hard as it is to do sometimes that evening meal where you can have open discussion and talk about how you're feeling. It could be watching a church service together online, but we're developing new systems now as we go back into this school year. And I would suggest do that gradually and not all at once, and remember that each day is a new day and we can start over again. And lastly, the 4 things that we all are reminded of as adults also are helpful to our children: sleep, nutrition, exercise, and healthy relationships. These will all help us be grounded in this transition.
Those are wonderful advices. I was write it down: grace and space, honor the grief and loss, maintain a routine, and sleep well, and eat well, and exercise. Yeah, those are really great advices. Thank you, Len, for that. Any comments from the audience here as well, or anybody asking any questions? We would welcome to the people who are watching us. Please write your comment and tell us where you're watching from. If you have a comment about this conversation, or if you have a specific question for Len Sommer and Leslie Huff, who are professional counselors from the Samaritan Center, please join us in the conversation. Thank you, Len, for that. Leslie, would you like to add anything? Or are you ready for the next question?
Well, the only thing I want to add in many ways to really kind of create almost a little bit of a broad context to lay those really wonderful points that Lynn just made. You know, when we're sitting here, sometimes listening to those types of suggestions, we can tend to have 2 different kinds of reaction. One is those things seem too simplistic, right? And the other being, I don't have time for that. And so I think it's really helpful for us to recognize that, you know, we are being confronted with a tremendous amount of intense change. I mean, change is a constant, but our awareness of its intensity is so much more kind of prevalent right now. And those really basic types of things that Lynn outlined, the schedule, self-care, etc., in this time, they really aren't kind of luxuries. They aren't nice to haves. They are the things that are really going to make us capable of being able to be open-minded and open-hearted. So I just would really encourage people to recognize that making that extra space to really make it possible for us to do those things is really important.
Thank you, Leslie. That's wonderful about being aware of the changes and really being intentional about what's happening with us. We have a couple of questions, Will, right? Will, I think there were comments or questions. Go ahead.
We had a clarifying question. Kristen asked for Lynn to repeat what you said about what to do with kids in regards to their grief, if that's all right, to reiterate.
Yep. Simply validate their feelings, what they are saying, and honor their thoughts about that, as small as it may seem. And then also ask them what they need out of that loss. Like, is there another way to include that in your life, but in a new and creative way?
Mm-hmm. And if I could just make one comment of that to kind of expand with Lynn. You know, I think oftentimes as parents, it is so painful for us to see our children struggle. Mm-hmm. And so we really want to jump in and fix the situation. But as Lynn is stating, that even something as simple as like, wow, that's really hard. Or you must feel really sad about that. Or, I can imagine this is difficult. You know, something just as simple as saying that can provide that kind of validation that Lynn is mentioning. And although, again, it seems so simplistic, it will really land with your teen in a way that's very helpful.
So instead of just saying, oh, get over it, you'll be fine, go for a walk.
Exactly.
You have to kind of really validate their feelings and empathize. So yeah, that's really great advice. Thank you. I'm learning a lot. I'm also multitasking here. So I'm conducting the conversation, watching the comments and everything. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to be in the moment. I'm trying to listen to you. Okay.
Take a breath, Noe.
What's that?
Take a breath.
And a smile. All right. The next question we have here is, how can we help children and teens cope in constructive ways with the new normal of school? So maybe get into some specifics, like this week or last week or the coming week, the kids are going back to school, but it's online, it's hybrid, it's in person, but with mask. This new normal is different. How can we help them in this different setting?
I saw a wonderful article written by 2 local therapists titled 5 Things Parents Can Do to Help Their Kids Return to School, which is also on the list we gave you by Adam and Darcy Miller. And they had 5 main points. Quickly, one is to prepare. So as parents learn more about the specifics that their school district is doing, update your child, talk to your child about that, which I'm sure parents are doing. And the way that we talk about it is most likely how our child will experience it. So if I talk about it in a scary or upsetting way, my child will most likely internalize that and experience it in the same way. And remind our kids that they can always talk to us about what they're experiencing or questions that they might have. A second thing is to give choices. So for younger children, if they have more than one mask, it could mean a lot to them to pick each day which one they wear based on how it feels on them, how they're feeling that day or their outfit. For younger kids in particular, practice social distancing. What does it really mean to social distance? And the example in this article is to put your arms out like an airplane and create a bubble around you and explain that their job is to not pop the bubble of someone else or let someone pop their bubble. Or for an older kid, they could imagine a hula hoop around them to just sort of help with social distance. Listen to what is upsetting. Again, what we were talking about, validating. And we do have a visual for you to put up about circle of control. So a conversation we can have with our children when things are upsetting to them is this something that's within your control? Or is it not within your control? So you could go ahead and put that visual up for us to see.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Let's go ahead and share that visual. I think it was a great one to share. Here we go. So Lynn, could you describe a little bit the visual we're sharing right now?
Yeah, so quickly in the center circle, those are the things that we can control. And this concept is being applied to the pandemic. It can be applied to anything, but in this case, what are the things that I can focus on? I can focus on my kindness and grace. I can focus on my positive attitude. I can focus on my own social distancing. So that's what we can focus on outside of that circle. Things that I need to let go of that I cannot control include how long will this last? The actions of others. I think it could be a handy exercise for a family to hang up a large white sheet of blank paper and draw a circle in the center and a circle around it. And as you have conversations with your kids, you could pause and say, is that something we can control? Or is that something we need to let go of? And you can write it in the circle, outside of the circle, have it hanging at home so you can walk past it, be reminded, and it will help us with our conversations as families.
Yeah, and I just want to make a quick comment about this. When you sent me this, I wanted to share right away on my Facebook or share with everybody, but I wanted to wait for you to share it first because it really spoke to me. Personally, I've been also struggling because I'm a type A person, first child, overachiever kind of guy. So when things started getting messy with the pandemic and I couldn't travel the way I wanted to travel, or I started getting frustrated. So it's really important to recognize what are things that I can control and what are things that I cannot control and I have to let go. So I think I really appreciate sharing that with us. And if I have your permission, we would like to share this in our Facebook and Highland Facebook later too. Okay.
Yeah, the permission's at the bottom of the originator. Yeah.
So that's, let me go there. That's, yes, it was shared by Carrie Stevens Art, the counseling teacher website. Wonderful. Thank you, Lynn.
Sure. And then the fifth thing in this article, we're done with this visual now, is again, validating fears and validating concerns and reassuring your child. So for example, if their concern is that someone will get sick, we can let them know that we will all go through this together and that the family can support them. And I would add that encourage our kids to not be part of the rumor mill at school. So if a child is out sick, not be part of starting a rumor on why they might be out, or if in fact they are diagnosed with COVID, remind them that it's not their fault, it's not something that child did, and that we want to be kind. Attached to this article is an article on social stories. So it's pictures of step 1, step 2, step 3, about wearing a mask, taking the bus, having your temperature taken. They're originally designed for kids with special needs, but I think the pictures are so wonderful and so helpful that those could be good pictures to look at with your kids.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lynn. Will, I think we have some audience or some people who are watching us have some questions or comments. Would you like to
We do have an audience question, yeah, and it seems related to me to what you're talking about in terms of, you know, how new circumstances could lead to new types of being mean in terms of starting rumors about kids being sick. But this has to do with, this is Sarah asking a question about the peculiar challenges that Christian students or faith-based students could face, experiences like being an outsider, as if they have to do what their classmates think is cool, or just new types of pressures and how they might experience that. Any reaction to that being put forward?
It would be helpful to have a little bit more information, outlier from particular actions, or
I think it's maybe more broadly a question about pressures that kids experience.
So beyond COVID, almost that question of, you know, I'm a student coming into a new space, and I strongly am identified with my faith. How might that be experienced by my peers? Is that kind of, Will, do you think that's
what I'm reading? Yeah.
I think it's beyond COVID. I think it's about peer pressure or students not fitting in,
sure,
not being accepted, and that could be a struggle for some students.
I think one of the things that's really important is in this age group, when you're a teenager, you're really trying to figure out who you are. And in addition to kind of trying on different sort of perspectives and seeing how they feel, as well as also maybe gravitating away from certain identities that you have been given, right, as a child. And now you're kind of saying, well, what of that is me? And what of that do I want to set aside? What do I want to choose? In this period of exploration, I think that a practice that I think is also very aligned with somebody who strongly identifies with their Christian faith is being able to actually, we'll go back to what Lynn said earlier, that space and grace to be able to experience other people's perspectives. It's hard when somebody judges you, especially when that judgment comes from maybe a lack of understanding, perhaps even a place of fear. And it is a natural tendency within all of us that the immediate reaction is going to be one of defensiveness, right? And in some ways that's healthy. That's good to want to be able to protect ourselves. But it is an interesting balance with trying to protect ourselves without slipping into sort of self-righteousness, where we're trying to sort of get other people to agree with us so that we can be okay with ourselves, right? And so I think, again, when somebody is strongly identified in whatever aspect that, we could insert aspect here, but we're particularly talking about faith, I would say that there are a number of practices within the Christian faith about being open-hearted and being open-minded, and in some ways modeling one's faith in the way that we respond to that judgment. We don't really look like great Christians if we're yelling at somebody about judging us, right? And we certainly also don't look like great Christians if we're judging them back, right? So in some ways, I think that's a great opportunity to really ground yourself in that identity by being that identity.
So be gracious, but yet assertive at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
A learning journey for all of us. Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Leslie. Again, thank you everyone for watching us. We're speaking with Lynn Sommer and Leslie Huff from the Samaritan Center about mental health for children and teens as they start a new school year. And actually, I want to shout out to one of my friends or students from seminary who's Andrew Wenger, who's watching us. He actually has a comment here, and I would like to read it for you. And Andrew says, something we have struggled with is having a nearly 3-year-old who wants to be and is very social. We were in the process of creating those social networks for her in our new town when all of this started happening. Any recommendations for helping her to continue building those skills in safe ways? That's a great question for a 3-year-old. Mm-hmm. Who would like to tackle that one?
Leslie?
Well, given the fact that I have a very social 5-year-old, I think in some ways, perhaps my experience is a little closer to this. And it is really hard when suddenly you've become your child's playmate, right? And I had to talk with my daughter this morning about, I'd love to play with you, but I need to clean the bathroom. and really trying to, especially at that age, being used to and wanting to be kind of the center of our worlds. And so I think it's a balance. Again, as Lynn pointed out earlier, finding a choice that makes sense for your family. And this could span everything from, maybe identifying other families who are following similar ways of navigating COVID, that you've sort of come up with an agreement that your children are able to play with each other because the fact that you guys are on the same page around how you're handling COVID. On the other end of the extreme, if you don't feel comfortable or there aren't really people around you that you feel as comfortable with having your child play with, then you may actually need to be a little bit more engaged with them. At the same time, I think, engaging with shows like Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood on PBS Kids, where they're talking about friendships and interactions, and then following up with a discussion with your child, or role playing a little bit with her toys, or reading a book together and saying, how do you think that character feels? How would you feel? So there's lots of ways in which you can start to really build the awareness, even if maybe they don't quite have the capacity to have the direct interaction with peers. And also remember that this is a very short period of time in the overall length of time that your child will be alive. And so I think that's also that worry, and I'm sort of speaking to myself as I say this out loud, is we have to remember that our children will recover from this period of time. So also to not feel so worried about how we haven't set them up for success because of this, that we will still have time to make corrections as we move forward.
That's a great transition for our next topic, resilience.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we hear about the word resilience a lot. What are some tangible ways to be resilient, especially for our children and teenagers?
Yeah, this is a word that we're hearing a lot, both for adults and children. And it's a good reminder to remind ourselves that we're not born with resilience, that it's something that we build. We continue to build it throughout our life. It's a combination of the experiences that we have that interact with our unique individual genetic makeup. So that's why all of us respond differently to stressors, including a time like COVID. We see very different responses. And resilience, of course, is our ability to spring back. We have a visual for this as well that I really liked. It's a reminder that resiliency can be like a seesaw. And you can tip to one side for the negative experiences or tip to the other side for positive, and they bring positive outcomes. And then there's the fulcrum in the middle where we build our skills. And the fulcrum can be at a different place for different children. And depending where it is, it can make it harder or easier to tilt towards the positive outcomes. So everything that we can do as a parent to look at what are the negative experiences that my child is having right now. And of course, with COVID, it includes things like physical distancing, or perhaps knowing a loved one that has COVID, or school buildings that are closed. Those are givens. And then the positives for individual kids that can be the sense of safety and a routine, responsive relationships. So we know kids learn best when they have a strong social emotional relationship with their teacher or the adult, and having their basic needs met. So that may be what a given child is dealing with, but what can allow them to really determine where that fulcrum is and handle it and balance it. And if you move the visual up a teeny bit more, it shows that we help our children build skills by self-regulation, like learning to identify and control their emotions. We also help our children develop those skills for the fulcrum by developing executive functioning skills. And there's no time like now to be developing that when our children are using electronic devices for school, where they have to turn in assignments in a different way, communicate with their teachers in a different way, communicate with their peers in a different way. So they're learning how to manage all that. And the more they can get those kinds of skills, the stronger their fulcrum will be in terms of their balance for resilience. And then I would just add that our children are observing how we handle, how resilient we are. And so when we learn of yet another schedule change for our child's school, which could be tomorrow, it could be next week, are they going to observe us blaming someone and being angry? Or are they going to be observing us like exploring what plan B could be? And if we explore this out loud and role model this like way of resiliency for them, it could be really helpful. An example could be like, I need some time to think about this. I'm frustrated by the change, so I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to call a friend. I'm going to read an article that somehow will help me best prepare. We can talk about it at dinner tonight after I've had some time to think about it. So if we can say that out loud to our kids, they see that we have this frustration, how are we trying to be resilient and applying the skills that we have at that time? That can be powerful for our kids.
Thank you, Lynn. I love visuals, so it's making me think of it's a balance. So resiliency, you build resiliency by balancing things in life. And then by modeling the example, so how we react as parents or teachers for the children and the youth is very important. Thank you for this. We'll be posting this actually in our Facebook late after the conversation, after the meeting today. So stay tuned with us and with this wonderful resource. Thank you so much, Lynn. I'm going to stop sharing this now. Leslie, anything you'd like to add about resiliency?
So one thing, and again, this is one of the reasons why I love working at Samaritan Counseling, because I have such amazing colleagues. So everything that Lynn says, I just, one of the things that I love about what she said is that I think often as parents, we think that it is our job to appear completely together because the alternative is to be completely a mess. And I think Lynn just so beautifully outlined there that when we are completely shielding our children from us having an emotional response, we don't really give them either A, permission to have their own emotional response, and B, we don't model for them how to have a skillful emotional response. Emotions aren't the problem. I mean, you can't stop having a feeling, but we have a plethora of options on how to actually respond to that feeling. And so as Lynn really beautifully outlined that example of being able to say, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling this. And these are the things I'm going to do about it. And then I'm going to come back when I'm, still aware of my feeling, but I'm also a little bit more centered. And so I think that is a wonderful way in which parents can be reminded to care for themselves while at the same time doing a wonderful job modeling and teaching. Because, kids pay way more attention to what they see us do than what they hear us say. So thank you that's a wonderful thing for people to recognize is possible for them to do with their kids.
Thank you, Leslie. Well, how are we doing with our listeners and our people who are watching us? We have a lot of people following us. So are there any other questions or comments that you'd like to share?
Yeah, we have a question. This is from Sam asking about potentially the physical and other changes that perhaps are happening to people who get COVID, and how that can affect young people. How are children prepared that the adults in the home may be changed? Is that related to resilience? And I think looking a little more broadly, the question is, how are we, we can expect to change over the course of this process. So how are we being aware of that and adapting in a way that, again, models something good for our young people?
So to clarify, is that how are we adapting as we receive new information about COVID, or how are we adapting if somebody in the home gets COVID? Will, what is your interpretation?
I think the question specifically was about altering brain and physical functions for people who get COVID, but we take that as one example of a change that happens to a person. I think there are probably other ways that we as adults are changing physically, psychologically. How can we accommodate that, whatever changes are happening?
Yeah, I think that although that neither Lynn or I are in a position to really discuss sort of the more medical aspect of it, I think a lot of what we have already been saying could be applied to this particular question, which is around, discerning how to share information so that we can keep our children aware of what's happening age appropriately. And at the same time, having a structure so that there's a clarity of, well, this is what we're going to be doing now, right? Even if, for example, somebody in the home needs to quarantine, within a certain section of the house. Okay, well, let's have a discussion, and this is how we're going to be shifting our routine. And speaking about it, as Lynn pointed out earlier, speaking about it in a very matter-of-fact, transparent, non-fear-based way. I think, again, when we have a tendency to want to hide things and, kind of whisper behind, kids are way smarter than we give credit for. And their minds, just like us as adults, will leap to the worst case scenario if we don't actually know what's happening. And so, again, age appropriately, giving enough information so people know what's happening, so we don't have any ambiguity out there, and an understanding of, given that this is happening, this is what we're going to be doing. And if we need to change it, then we'll talk about that again. And I think that goes back to the diagram that Lynn pointed up. To build that resilience is having the coping skills, being able to understand, okay, I have a plan. I know what I'm going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that does give a sense of safety.
Is the diagram
very
again
good.
about resiliency? Just people who might be just joining us. We're speaking with Lynn Summer and Leslie Huff from the Samaritan Center on the topic of mental health for children and teens. And we really thank you, all of you, for tuning in and watching us. We have a lot of people who are commenting, asking questions, and we have questions here we have prepared. So hopefully we'll make it. We only have a few more weeks to go, but Rebecca Smith has actually had an interesting question.
Yeah.
I would like to address that goes along with what we're sharing right now. This is what Rebecca says. Since the outbreak, we have seen our son spending more time alone and not wanting to be tucked in at night or hold hands when we pray. Can we expect this to go away once social distancing ends? And that's a very important question. A very clear example of how this COVID might be affecting one child and maybe affecting others. What would be your answer?
Well, this leads into the next question we were going to talk about, related to the mental health of teens in the county and statewide, and results that we have from a survey. And how does a parent know when what their child is displaying is normal and part of the grieving process, or what we're experiencing, and when is it something that needs a little bit more attention? So that's the discerning part there. And no matter what they're showing us, they always need as much touch and care and love as possible, even if they aren't absorbing it in the same way. So if you think this is a good time for me to go into the survey results in a little bit.
Please
Okay.
go ahead. Yeah.
So there's a survey that's done every year in Pennsylvania. Their teens fill out and respond to, and the statistics from 2019, it's called the Pennsylvania Youth Survey, PAYS for short, showed that 37% of teens reported feeling depressed or sad most days throughout the previous year. 16% had considered suicide, and 9.4% attempted suicide. And those are very sobering statistics. And then more broadly, in the state of Pennsylvania, 1 out of every 5 adolescents had a diagnosable mental health concern. And in Pennsylvania, suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death among adolescents, and nearly 1/3 showed symptoms of depression. So that's a lot of difficult information, but as a parent then, how do we take that and know when it's a warning sign for something that needs a little bit more attention, or if it's what many kids are experiencing at this time? So some things to look for a parent. For a teen, if you see persistent irritability, not just occasional irritability, but persistent anger, persistent social withdrawal, those are things to pay attention to, or major changes in appetite and sleep. For younger children, if you see return to bedwetting, perhaps excessive crying, returning to behaviors that they have outgrown, or excessive worrying and sadness, unexplained headaches, body pain, or avoiding activities they've usually done, that's when it's important to have a conversation with them. And if your child is assuring you, no, I'm fine, it's not a problem, but your instinct is telling you you think that you'd like to have a little bit more information, that's a good time to have a conversation with your PCP, your primary care physician, or your school counselor. And your school counselor has resources within your district with the school social worker, the school psychologist, or the school nurse. If you go to your PCP, they can do screenings for anxiety and depression. They can give you resources for the community. And on families' health insurance cards, there's a note often on the back called Behavioral Health Services. If you call that number or go in line, that'll let you know which mental health services are in network for your family. And those are resources that families can tap into.
And of course, they can also reach out through the Samaritan Center. Like they can call the office to seek some counseling if that's something that the parents think is best for them. But it's good to know that there are resources out there in the schools with the physician, and there are other organizations in the community who are helping, like the Samaritan Center. So thank you so much for all you do for our children and teens in this time. And Rebecca, thank you for asking your question, and we will continue supporting you and in our prayers for you and your child. So we said this is going to be a 45-minute conversation, and we're almost getting there. And I'm sure your time is so precious, and you have to go back to your other activities. So, but I do want to get to self-care and mindfulness. Leslie, I think you wanted to share a little bit about self-care and mindfulness.
Yes, thank you, Noe. It's interesting. The other day, I was trying to reflect on a metaphor that could be useful to help people understand the imperativeness of self-care, as well as also to understand how can we kind of unlearn that belief that anything that begins with the word self is selfish or indulgent. And I kind of landed on the metaphor of a cell phone. So most of us have a cell phone. I've got, one sitting right here. Most of us probably have it close by. And, it's interesting to me. I was thinking about how we get this cell phone and we spend money buying like a fancy little case and a screen protector. We want to make sure it's okay. And, we're careful with it near water and all of these other things that it's like so precious because we know how much it does for us. How it is such a way for us to access the world and access resources. And I started thinking, well, it's kind of funny because most of us upgrade these every couple of years. Mm-hmm. So then I started thinking about how the fact of what would it be like if you were born and you were given a cell phone you had to protect for the rest of your entire life. Right? Probably many of us would never take it out of the house. We would really we'd lock it away and make sure it's protected. But instead, some of the things that we do with our cell phones are, we plug it in at night to make sure the battery recharges. We pay attention to notifications when maybe we're running too many apps or it needs to be upgraded. So the invitation that I have is to say, our bodies, our minds, our souls, our hearts, this is what we were born with and what we will have for our entire life. And what would it be like to recognize the tool, the important tool that ourselves are in navigating throughout the world? And if that were the case, what are some of the things that we can do to be careful with ourselves? What are some things that we can do to make sure we're recharging so that we have the energy to be able to respond? How can we pay attention when we have taken on too many things rather than just blasting through and taking on 3 more, right? How can we almost sort of take the care that we have with this, rectangular electronic and actually direct it towards ourselves, not for reasons of being separate or over here in a state of luxury, but really so that we can be as productive and as effective and have actually that grace and space that we've been talking about for other people around us. So I would encourage people to think a little bit about what are some things that they might be able to do. Lynn mentioned in the beginning of our talk today some basic things like paying attention to your sleep, paying attention to how hydrated we are, paying attention to what you put in your body. You know, are you putting things in that give you fuel and energy? What kinds of things are you putting in your mind? You know, do you need to get out of that news cycle? Like, how many more COVID updates do you really need to listen to that day? And so that part of really being a bit more protective so that we might be able to navigate this experience with a much more robust set of resources.
Well, thank you, Leslie. And from the theological perspective, as I was listening to you speaking about self-care and mindfulness, the concept of Sabbath, right?
Yes.
The Shabbat in the Hebrew, it's even for God was so important to rest on the seventh day and establish that everybody had to rest. And the idea of resting is to recharge, to renew, but also having that deeper connection spiritually with the higher power. So, you know, this is, we're sponsored by Highland Presbyterian Church, so I could share the spiritual, the theological perspective of self-care, that is not only maintaining our being physical or emotional, it's also is connected to spiritual, our spiritual being also. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Well, any comments that we need to pay attention in our comments or questions or?
No new ones apart from some thank yous and some hellos.
Very good. Leslie, you had a practice for mindfulness that you like to share. Maybe we can finish up with that one, and anything else that you like to share as we finish our conversation. Is there something that you could teach us briefly in our practice of mindfulness?
Absolutely. And this is one of the core practices of mindful self-compassion that we teach in the Change Through Compassion class. And it layers the focus on the breath with anchoring ourselves in affirming words, doing a little visualization. And it is a loving kindness practice in many ways, which is a little bit of a prayer for ourselves and for others. So I'd invite everybody just to close your eyes, either fully or partially, if that feels more comfortable. And just start by taking a couple of deep breaths. And just turning within, I invite you to reflect on what is it that you need in order to be able to create that grace and space. Or maybe perhaps you need some patience or compassion. Maybe you need some health or perhaps even love. Whatever it is that you need, as you breathe in, I invite you to breathe in this good thing for yourself, allowing the word to float in on the breath. And if you're a visual person, maybe imagine breathing in a certain light or a color. Just continuing to breathe in that good thing for yourself. And by breathing in this good thing and taking this deep breath, you're just really grounding yourself in this thing that you need, quieting down the system in your body by taking the deep breaths. And you're focusing on that positive, where you'd like to put your control and your focus. Now, as you continue to breathe in this good thing for yourself, I invite you to bring to mind somebody towards whom it's just very easy to send some goodwill. Or perhaps it's somebody you know who's really struggling right now. And bring this person to your mind's eye. And think a little bit about what this person may need. Maybe they need some peace, compassion, or to feel seen or love. And continuing to breathe in the good thing for yourself. Now, as you exhale, breathe out the good thing to the other. Breathing in for you, breathing out for the other. Just allowing this compassion to flow in and out between the two of you. Recognizing that you cannot send something good to this other person unless you are also breathing in for yourself. And now releasing the practice, and just notice how you feel in your body. And coming back with your eyes fully open. And noting that that practice is something that you can do for as long as you would like, kind of sitting quietly by yourself. But it also is something that you can do when you're sitting across from somebody like your child who's struggling. And you're trying to figure out how to make that grace and space. You can actually maybe breathe in some peace and maybe breathe out some safety to your child. And have that practice going quietly in your mind so that your heart can stay open to them in whatever exchange you're having. And if you'd like to have a longer practice of that, at the Change Through Compassion section of our Samaritan website, you can actually link to some videos that I've created that are free on YouTube. And you can just get a little bit more practice with some of these.
Leslie, thank you so much. It really worked because this morning I was a little bit anxious and multitasking, but just doing that practice, I feel more relaxed, more at ease. And thank you for that. I do that
My pleasure.
every morning and every evening. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I do want to share the resources page that you mentioned. There are some resources about articles and readings as we finish up. Let's see. Where's, oh, here. So there is a resource. I think we need to, I can move this up. All right. So we have some resources for that Lynn and Leslie mentioned. So we have some, any of you would like to describe briefly the resources? And then I will be posting this on our Facebook, and we can also email to people who would like to.
Many of these are articles that I referenced when I was doing my own review for this talk. I found them helpful, so I thought that the parents would enjoy seeing them as well. And you can just click on the link and see the article yourself. And like I said, the one written by Adam and Darcy Miller, that's the 5 things parents can do to help their kids return to school. Those are local counselors, and that's really excellent, and has the visual articles at the end. And the other resources relate to it. And then there's a publishing company towards the end, Free Spirit Publishing, that has some excellent books if parents are interested in some books that they can get. Being the Best Me and Behavior series are nice read-alongs with their children about emotions.
Yeah, so we'll be posting these resources in our Facebook shortly after this conversation. And we can also email you if you like to send us see us a document if you like. Thank you everyone for watching us. Thank you for joining us for this conversation. And Lynn, Summer, and Leslie Huff from the Samaritan Center, we really appreciate it. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much for your time, all the preparation that you have done for this presentation of this conversation, and the people are very appreciative of that. We will be actually posting this video on our Facebook later and also on our YouTube channel at Highland, so more people can watch us later too. So any closing comments as we leave? At our time, we really went more than what we planned, but thank you so much for being here. Any closing comments or anything you like to share?
Well, I'd like to say thank you to the people who were willing to share what they're thinking about, what they're going through, because it gave other people an opportunity to hear, to see, oh, there's someone who's going through what I'm going through, and then also gave us a chance to talk and really open up some possibilities. So thank you for sharing. I hope you feel seen and heard and feel supported in what you are going through, the difficult decisions you're trying to make.
Thank you, Will.
And I just wanted to thank Noe Highland for actually hosting this so that we could continue to try to get this really important information out to people to remind us that we are not alone in this process.
You're welcome. And thanks to Highland, for hosting it.
Yep, and I support what Leslie said. We appreciate your partnership.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, everybody. Our time is up, but it was a meaningful conversation. Stay tuned, friends. We'll do this event like once a month or twice a month. And we're also open for suggestions. Any topic that you would like us to discuss in the future, send us an email or send us a message or a comment on our Facebook or wherever you like. So stay tuned. September is coming up, so we'll have some good topics coming up. So we'll be announcing soon. So Lynn and Leslie will stay. We're gonna get off the Facebook and then stay. Don't go yet, but we're gonna just stop here. Well, thank you, everyone. See you later. Bye-bye.